The promise on the starship steps. The sky above the alien world was dark blue, filled with two suns and a moon that shimmered like silver. The human starship landed softly on the open platform outside the royal palace of Celira. Dust swirled around, the ship as its engines powered down. Out stepped a young boy named Jace, only 12 years old, his eyes wide with wonder. Jace had come with his parents, who were scientists and diplomats. They were here to speak with the leaders of Celira about peace, trade, and knowledge. Jace didn't care much about politics. He was more interested in exploring this strange world. The trees were tall and glowing. The air smelled like sweet metal. And the people, tall, silver-skinned aliens, watched him with quiet eyes. Inside the palace, everything was made of crystal and light. His parents went into a meeting room with the Celiran Council. Jace was told to wait in the garden. He wandered among the glowing plants, watching dragonfly-like creatures dance in the air. And that's when he saw her. She was small, even shorter than Jace. Her skin was pale silver with a soft glow, and her long white hair was braided with tiny stones. Her eyes were large and deep purple, filled with curiosity. She wore a robe with symbols that shimmered when she moved. "Who are you?" Jace asked. "I am Princess Lyra," she said softly, tilting her head. "Who are you?" "I'm Jace. Just a kid, really." He laughed nervously. "Your world is amazing." She nodded but didn't smile. "I've never met a human before." They sat on a stone bench beside a pool that reflected the twin suns. At first, they didn't talk much. Lyra picked up a tiny glowing bug and let it crawl across her hand. Jace watched in silence. After a while, he began to tell her about Earth. Trees that turned red in the fall. Games he played at school, his dog back home. Lyra listened closely, her expression never changing, but her eyes grew softer. "Do you have friends here?" Jace asked. She shook her head. "I'm not allowed to leave the palace much. The council says I must be protected." "That sounds lonely." "It is." He thought for a moment. "Well, if you were on Earth, you'd be popular. People would line up to meet a glowing alien princess." She looked away. "Not here. I'm too small, too weak. The others don't respect me. They laugh when I speak in meetings. Even my own people." He frowned. "That's not fair. You seem smart." She looked at him, eyes wide with surprise. "You think so?" He smiled. "Of course. You're the only one who's been nice to me here." A moment of silence passed between them. Then Jace stood up on the edge of the stone steps and stretched his arms wide. "You know what?" he said with a grin. "When you grow up, I'll come back and marry you." Lyra blinked. "Marry me?" "Sure. You'll be strong and powerful by then. And maybe I'll be a famous pilot. We'll fly across the stars together." She didn't laugh. Instead, she stood and looked up at him with serious eyes. "Will you really come back?" Jace scratched the back of his head. "I mean, maybe, if I can." Just then, one of the human guards came running. "Jace, we have to go, now!" His parents rushed out of the palace looking pale and angry. Something had gone wrong in the meeting. The Celiran elders had refused the offer of peace. They said humans were too violent, too greedy. "No time to say goodbye," the guard said, pulling Jace toward the ship. Jace turned back as he was dragged up the ramp. Lyra was still standing on the steps. She raised a hand slowly and whispered, "Something." But the engines roared too loudly for him to hear. Inside the ship, he pressed his face to the window. He saw her small figure growing smaller, standing tall as the ship lifted into the sky. He never forgot her. And Lyra never forgot the promise. That night, as Celira's moons rose high, she stood alone in the training hall. The guards didn't see her sneak in. She took a practice blade from the wall. It was too heavy. She held it with both hands and swung it clumsily. "If I am weak now," she whispered, "I will become strong." A small voice echoed in her memory. "When you grow up, I'll come back and marry you." She didn't know if he meant it, but she believed, and that belief would shape her destiny. The warrior in shadows. The war zone was quiet. Too quiet. Jace adjusted his helmet, peering into the thick fog that covered the dead plains of Carlin 5. The once green colony world was now ash and metal. Twisted towers stuck out of the ground, like broken bones. His boots crunched on scorched dirt as he walked through what used to be a farming town. The buildings were blackened ruins. The air still smelled like smoke. His team followed behind him, elite human commandos, trained for deep space rescue and recovery. The mission was simple: find the missing scientists and get out. But nothing about this felt simple anymore. "Stay sharp," Jace whispered into his comms. Suddenly, movement, fast, silent, just a blur, darted between the ruins. Someone, or something, was watching them. "Did anyone see that?" Private Ramos asked, raising his blaster. "Affirmative," Jace replied, already scanning the rooftops. Then it began. The first blast came from nowhere. A red beam hit Corporal Brink in the chest. He dropped instantly. Another followed. Clean, perfect shots. Too fast for any regular enemy. This was not a random attack. "Ambush!" Jace shouted. Chaos erupted. Blasters lit up the night, but they were shooting at shadows. One by one, soldiers fell, taken down by something that moved like wind. Something too fast for the human eye to follow. Each kill was clean, precise, controlled. Jace had seen many enemies in his years as a soldier, but never one like this. Then, in the middle of the gunfire, she appeared. She moved with elegance and death. Her armor was dark silver, layered like dragon scales. A mask covered her face, and her long braid swung like a whip as she fought. She didn't use a gun. She had blades, sharp, curved, and glowing faintly blue. With each movement, she dropped another soldier. Jace tried to shoot, but she twisted in midair, dodging the shot as if she had seen it coming before he even fired. Their eyes met for a second, and he froze. Those eyes. Purple. Deep. Glowing. Familiar. "Fall back," he ordered. The surviving members retreated to the shuttle. Explosions shook the ground behind them. Jace fired cover shots, but the warrior didn't chase them. She watched him. Still. Calm. Like a statue of war. Then she turned and vanished into the shadows. The ship lifted off with heavy hearts and 2/3 of the squad gone. Back on the orbiting medical ship, Jace sat alone, staring out the window. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Not just her skills. Her presence. Her gaze. Her eyes. They reminded him of someone. Someone from long ago. From a place with glowing gardens and twin suns. From a promise made on starship steps. He shook his head. It couldn't be her. The girl from Selira had been soft-spoken and delicate, gentle. This warrior was fury given form. She killed without mercy. She fought like a god. But still, something inside him whispered a name. Lyra, on the other side of space. The masked warrior stood inside a quiet room lit by a single beam of starlight. She removed her helmet slowly. Underneath, her face was marked by time, by fire, by training. She was no longer the tiny girl from the palace steps. She was Commander Lyra of the Silent Fang, an elite warrior order cast out by the Celeran Council for breaking traditions and using human combat techniques. She remembered everything. Every word, every moment, every laugh. "When you grow up, I'll come back and marry you." He had said that like a joke. But it had planted something in her heart. Not love, not yet. But a fire. A reason to grow. To fight. To become more. She had waited years to see him again. And when she finally found him, he didn't recognize her. She didn't blame him. She had changed. But now he had seen her, true strength, and the galaxy was changing too. She received a new message from her hidden informants. One of the human generals was planning a secret invasion into neutral Celeran territory. Lyra couldn't let it happen, not just for her people, but for him too. He was a good man, not like the others. And even if he had forgotten her promise, she had not. She whispered his name as she turned toward her war table. Jace. She traced his face on the screen with her fingers. You will remember, even if I have to make you. She pressed a button. The lights in the room shifted. A new mission began. On the human fleet's main base, Jace stood before the High Council, giving his report. It was not a random attack, he said. It was a trained killer. She knew how to fight like us, maybe even better. The generals leaned in. Do you think it was a rogue mercenary? Jace paused. I don't think she's a mercenary. I think she's trying to send a message. What message? One asked. He looked down, then back at the stars outside the window. That she's not afraid of us. He didn't say what else he believed. That maybe, just maybe, she knew him. That somewhere behind that mask was someone from his past. Someone he once made a promise to. Someone who had returned, not as a princess, but as a warrior. Enemies in the same cell. The cell was cold. The walls were made of stone and steel. The light flickered from above, broken and tired like everything else on this forgotten prison moon. Jace sat on the floor, blood dried at the corner of his mouth, his armor cracked from the last fight. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious. His head throbbed, his hands were bound, and his weapons were gone. Outside the small window, he saw nothing, just the empty black of space and the red glow of the moon's volcanic surface. He shifted, testing his limbs. Bruised, sore, but alive. The door opened with a sharp hiss. Someone was thrown inside. Jace looked up, expecting another, prisoner or maybe a dying soldier. Instead, he saw her, the warrior. Same dark silver armor, same sharp movements, same glowing braid. She stumbled, chained like him, blood on her lip, but even injured, she held herself like a queen. Her helmet was gone and her face was no longer hidden. Jace froze. He knew those eyes. Those purple, burning eyes. Lyra. The words slipped from his mouth, soft, shocked. She didn't answer at first. She simply stared at him, hard, unreadable. Then finally she nodded once, you remember. He didn't know whether to smile or run. I thought you were weak? She cut in. Her voice was low and strong now. Not the shy voice of a girl in a garden. Forgotten? Left behind? No, Jace said quickly. I thought you were safe. I didn't expect you to turn into... He trailed off, gesturing at her armor. She sat down opposite him, back against the wall. A weapon? Silence fell between them. The air was thick with memory. She watched him, eyes never blinking. Why did you leave? I didn't have a choice, he said quietly. The council ended the meeting. Your people pushed us off-world. I was just a kid, I didn't know anything. But you made a promise. He looked away. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. Jace sighed. I never forgot you. I just thought you forgot me. She leaned forward. I trained every day to become strong. Not just to protect my people, but to stand next to you. The council laughed at me. My people said I was wasting time, but I remembered your words. They became my fuel. Jace stared at the floor. The weight of his own foolishness sat heavy in his chest. I didn't think a small joke would mean so much. To someone who had no one else, it meant everything. Another silence. This one was different. This one hurt. Why are we here? He finally asked. The rebel factions want me dead, she said flatly. They say I betrayed Celira by using human tactics. They say I've become more human than alien. And me? You were just unlucky. Wrong place, wrong mission. Great, Jace muttered. So we're going to die here. Lyra tilted her head. Unless we escape. He raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? She smiled for the first time, a cold, sharp smile. Always. Just then, outside their cell, they heard footsteps. 3 guards, speaking in hushed tones. She's dangerous, one whispered. They say she killed 5 elders with her bare hands, said another. And the human? Keep him alive for now. Jace and Lyra exchanged a look. You still fight like you did? Back there on Carlon 5, he asked. She flexed her wrists. I fight better. Then let's remind them why they should have left us alone. Lyra nodded, reached behind her belt, and pulled out a hidden shard. Thin, sharp, almost invisible. Jace's eyes widened. Where were you hiding that? Don't ask questions. In one clean move, she cut her bindings and handed him the shard. Moments later, he was free too. They stood, ready. As the guards opened the door, expecting chained prisoners, they were met with fury. Lyra struck first, flipping one soldier and snapping his weapon from his grip. Jace followed, kicking the second backward and slamming him into the wall. The third ran. But Jace tackled him before he could hit the alarm. Within seconds, the room was silent again. 3 bodies on the ground. 2 hearts still beating. 1 human. 1 Celeran. Jace panted, looking at her. You're still terrifying, she smirked. And you're still slow? They moved quickly through the prison corridor. Alarms began to sound in the distance. Someone had noticed the broken cell. Lyra took the lead. She knew these halls. This moon once belonged to Celerans before rebels took control. There's a ship in the hangar, she said. Small, fast, unguarded, if we're lucky. You always count on luck? No. I count on skill. They reached the lower deck, crawling through service vents and avoiding patrols. Gunfire echoed in the distance. The prison was falling into chaos. Why now? Jace asked. Why show yourself to me after all these years? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, Because you need to know what your people are planning. What do you mean? Your command is preparing an attack, not just on rebels but on Celira itself. They want to control our sun cores. They'll call it peace. But it's conquest. Jace's stomach turned. How do you know? Because I was there, I saw the orders. They reached the hangar. The ship stood in the shadows, unguarded. If we escape, he said, then what? Then we stop a war. Lyra placed her hand on the control panel. The ship's door opened with a hiss. Jace turned to her. And after that, she looked at him, the girl he once joked with, now a warrior shaped by fire. Then you can decide if your promise still means something. And without another word, they disappeared into the stars. Escape through fire. The stars were streaks of silver as the stolen Celeran ship roared through the void. Its engines, once meant for royal transport, now carried 2 fugitives. One a human soldier marked for betrayal, the other a warrior princess, hunted by her own kind. Lyra sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady as she guided the ship through a dense asteroid field. Jace stood behind her, gripping the railing as the hull vibrated under each sharp turn. How far to the jump gate? He asked. 4 clicks, she replied, eyes never leaving the screen. But they're already tracking us. See that signal? On the radar, a red pulse blinked in the corner. 1 ship, then 3, then 5. Jace frowned. They're closing. In. Then we go faster. Suddenly the ship shook violently. A warning light flashed red. Impact detected. Jace stumbled and caught himself. What was that? Proximity mine. They've seeded the field. Smart. Lyra pushed the ship harder, weaving between jagged asteroids. Explosions burst behind them, lighting the darkness like fireworks. One blast scorched their left wing. Sparks rained from the ceiling. This ship wasn't built for dodging missiles, Jace shouted. Then it's time to use what it was built for. She flipped a hidden switch. The floor panels opened. Twin energy cannons slid out from the undercarriage. You just had weapons hidden on this thing? I said royal transport, Lyra smirked. Did you think Celeran royals traveled unarmed? Not complaining. He jumped into the gunner's seat, hands flying across the controls. Outside, 3 enemy ships locked onto their position. Jace fired back, hitting one dead center. It exploded in a burst of violet light. The second ship dodged, returning fire. The third circled like a hawk. Cover our tail, Lyra shouted. I'm lining up the jump gate. Jace's blaster roared, to life. He took out the second fighter with a sharp spin, then focused on the third. It was faster. Too fast. It fired a plasma net that wrapped around their ship. We're caught, Jace shouted. They've got us! Lyra didn't panic. Instead, she pulled a small silver dagger from her belt, opened a floor panel, and jammed the blade into a glowing crystal. The ship screamed, then surged forward with a burst of forbidden energy. What did you do? Jace yelled as the net burned off and the stars around them blurred. Used my inheritance. The stolen jump crystal, an ancient royal artifact, burned out in seconds. But it was enough. They vanished. Gone. They reappeared above an old moon, orbiting a dead world, completely off-grid. The ship sputtered, smoke rising from its vents. Power systems were down. Gravity inside flickered. They landed hard, scraping across the dust before the ship slid to a stop against a ridge. Inside, silence. Jace rolled over, groaning. We're alive? Barely. But yes. He looked over. Lyra sat slumped against the wall, her braid singed, her face pale. She was injured. Blood soaked her side. Lyra! He rushed to her and checked her wound, a deep gash along her ribs, probably from the blast. Why didn't you say you were hit? Because we had bigger problems, she whispered. Not anymore. Now it's just us. He pulled out a med pack from the wall. Her armor hissed as he unlocked it and gently peeled it away. Still so serious, she whispered, half conscious. Only when people are bleeding to death. He patched the wound, sealed it with foam, and wrapped her side. Then he sat beside her, the dust outside settling like a blanket. We'll need to rest here, he said. We don't have time. You don't have strength, he corrected. So rest. She leaned back, closing her eyes. For a moment there was peace, and in that silence Jace finally asked, Why me? She opened one eye. What? After everything. After becoming a warrior. After losing your title, your people, your home. Why still chase a promise from a boy who barely knew what it meant? Lyra turned her face toward him. Because no one else ever saw me. What do you mean? They saw the crown, or the weakness, or the failure. But you were the first person who looked at me like I mattered. Like I could be something. Jace swallowed hard. He remembered the little girl in the garden, her soft voice, her wide eyes, her loneliness. I didn't know it would mean so much. It meant everything. Then she looked away, voice quiet. But I didn't come back just for that. I came back because your generals are lying. They're planning to burn half our sector just to take what they want. Lyra, the neutral colonies, the outlands, they'll destroy it all. And how do we stop them? He asked. We go where no one dares to go anymore. Where? To the ruins of Varos, where the old alliance was broken. Jace frowned. That place was cursed during the last war. Yes, Lyra said, sitting up slowly. But it holds proof. Old records, orders, names. If we get them, we can expose everything. And if we don't, then they'll erase our people. And no one will remember who we were. Jace nodded slowly. He understood now. This wasn't just about a promise, it was about justice. Truth. Survival. Then we'd better fix this ship, he said. We have a long road ahead. Outside, the moon was quiet, but above them, in deep space, enemy ships were searching. And behind the stars, war was rising like a storm. They had one shot left, and the fire was coming for them. The War Council doesn't forgive. The capital city of Celira shimmered like a dream carved into crystal. Towers spiraled high into the sky, made of glowing stone and energy threads that hummed softly in the wind. But inside the council hall, the air was heavy, cold, tense, ready to break. Lyra hadn't been here in 10 years, not since they exiled her. She stood tall at the entrance gate now, her dark silver armor scorched and dented, her side still aching from the moon battle. Beside her stood Jace, armored and silent, eyes scanning the guards around them. You sure about this? He whispered. No, Lyra said. But we're out of time. Their stolen ship had landed undetected thanks to her old codes. The guards had been shocked to see her, speechless when she demanded entrance into the high war chamber. Now the doors opened with a slow, echoing hiss, and all eyes turned. The War Council sat in a half-circle. 12 ancient Celeran leaders, dressed in robes of light, their expressions unreadable. Behind them stood dozens of warriors, advisors, recorders, all watching. A female elder leaned forward. Her face was sharp with age and wisdom. "You are forbidden from this place, Lyra of House Soren." "I come not as a traitor," Lyra said, her voice echoing across the chamber, "but as a warning." "You have no place here," growled another elder. "You turned against your people, trained in human ways, killed your own." Lyra took a deep breath. "And yet I'm the only one who has seen what is coming." A silence spread, then she stepped aside and motioned to Jace. Gasps rippled through the hall. A human. Here, in the sacred chamber. Alive. Blasphemy, someone spat. "He must be executed." Lyra raised her hand. "He has proof. Let him speak." 3 elders whispered among themselves. Old traditions clashed with present fear. Eventually the lead elder nodded once. "Speak, human, but choose your words wisely." Jace stepped forward. He wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't trained to speak in front of alien leaders, but he had seen too much to stay quiet. "My name is Jace Marin. I served the human border fleet for 6 years. I followed orders. I believed in peace." He paused. "But what I discovered changed everything." He reached into his armor and pulled out a small cube. A holocron, one of the last things they had recovered from Veros. With a twist, he activated it. The air shimmered and a hologram appeared, a secret human briefing. A general speaking to his commanders. "The Celeran sector will fall in 2 months. Once we secure the Sun Cores, we wipe their memory centers. Leave nothing behind, peace through fire." Gasps turned to roars. The council room exploded with voices, some in shock, some in rage. "Forged," one elder yelled. "Lies," said another. "They seek to divide us." But Lyra raised her voice. Strong, clear. "I was there. I saw the invasion plans. The human generals planned to make Celira the first example, to turn your cities into ruins and say it was necessary for galactic order." She walked slowly to the center of the room. "You exiled me because I trained in ways you feared, because I fought like them, but that is why I saw the truth before you did." The room fell into stunned silence. "Your pride blinded you," she said, turning to face each elder. "And now your silence will cost lives." One old warrior stood up. His face was scarred, his voice deep. "Even if you speak truth, even if the humans plan war, why should we believe you? The exile, the failure, the one who left." Lyra stepped forward and placed a hand over her chest. "Because I am still Celeran." Her voice cracked, just a little. "I never left you, even when you left me. I trained to protect our people, not to destroy them. And now I bring a chance to survive." She pointed to Jace. "He is not our enemy. He helped me escape. He bled for our cause. And he kept a promise, even when he thought it meant nothing." Jace felt the eyes of 100 Celerans burn into him. "I don't ask for trust," he said. "Only time. If we can unite, if Celera and humanity can act together, we can stop the war before it begins." For a long time, no one moved. Then the head elder stood. "You come with evidence. You speak with pain. You risked your life to return." He looked at Jace. "And you, human, you carry knowledge that may save lives." A pause. "But you also carry the guilt of your species." He turned to the guards. "Take them to the inner chamber. They will remain under watch. We will vote." As the guards stepped forward, Lyra nodded to Jace. "This is the best we could have hoped for." But just as they were about to leave, a thunderous boom echoed through the chamber. An explosion. Glass shattered. A smoke bomb rolled across the floor. "Attackers!" someone screamed. Out of the fog came shadows, armed rebels, Celerans dressed in black, wearing the mark of the old blood. a radical group who wanted no human alliance. They opened fire. The council guards jumped into action. Jace grabbed Lyra and pulled her down. "We're not done yet." She rolled, kicked, an attacker's weapon away and took his staff. Jace tackled another, grabbing a fallen blaster. Together, back to back, they fought in the center of the chaos. Screams filled the air, blades clashed with fire. And through it all, Lyra's voice rang out. "You want war? Then face the ones who've already seen it." She slammed her staff down, knocking 3 rebels away. "You want to burn our world? Then come through me." The smoke cleared slowly, and all around them rebels lay broken. The council stood shaken, but alive. Lyra fell to one knee, breathing hard. Jace knelt beside her. "You okay?" She nodded. "We proved our point." And somewhere in that ruined hall, a seed of hope was planted, but the storm had just begun. The War Council doesn't forgive. The gates of the Celeran High Chamber hadn't opened in years, and they had never opened for a human. But today, they groaned open like an ancient beast waking from slumber. Inside, the Grand War Hall sparkled with gold light and crystal strands that hung from the ceiling like starlight vines. 12 ancient thrones curved around the room in a half-circle. The council sat tall and still upon them, their glowing robes untouched by time, their silver eyes full of judgment. The moment Lyra entered, a low murmur echoed through the crowd. She did not bow. She walked forward, limping slightly from her wound, armor scorched and dented, dust still clinging to her boots. Behind her walked Jace. His human armor was battered but steady. His hands were empty, open, but his gaze was sharp, watching, counting exits, scanning weapons, measuring enemies. The head elder, Tyrix, keeper of war law, raised one slender hand. "Lyra of House Soren," he said, his voice as cold as frozen stone. "You were banished from this chamber, stripped of name, title, and rank. What gives you the right to return?" "The truth," Lyra said, loud enough for all to hear. Gasps followed. A second elder leaned forward. "You broke our ways, trained like the humans, fought like the humans. And now you bring one here?" Jace stepped forward before Lyra could reply. "We came to stop a war. Your war. And ours." A third voice sneered from the side. "The human speaks boldly for someone who walks among ghosts." Lyra looked at them, her eyes burning. "You call him a ghost, a threat, a stain, but I call him proof. He brings evidence of a coming genocide, not just of Celera, but every neutral system between." The council stirred, whispers rising. The air grew tight. Jace opened a small silver holocube and held it up. "We recovered this from Varos," he said. "The dead moon you all declared forbidden. It holds command transmissions, attack orders, secret briefings. Humans plan to destroy the Celeran archives, claim your sun cores, and rewrite the truth." He activated the cube. A hologram flickered to life. Blurry at first, then sharp. A human general stood in view, speaking to a dark room of high officers. "We move on Celera in 20 days. Total wipe. Take their cores, erase the rest. Tell the galaxy." It was peacekeeping. No survivors. No resistance. As the message ended, silence drowned the hall. Even the light above seemed to dim. Elder Tyrix stood slowly. "If what you bring is real, then we are on the edge of extinction." Another elder scoffed. "Or this is a trap." A younger voice, sharp and full of hate, stood from the side benches. "She returns after 10 years with a human soldier, with forbidden tech, and expects us to bow? No, she should be arrested, tried, executed." Some elders nodded. Others hesitated. Tyrix raised his hand again. "You have brought danger to our doorstep, Lyra. Do you understand that?" "I brought a chance to survive," she replied. "Your enemy is not me. It is coming in steel and fire, and it wears the face of diplomacy. This human is not your enemy either. He saved my life. He could have left me to die." Jace looked at them all. I was one of them, until I saw the truth. Now I stand with her. An old Celeran priest stepped forward from the shadows of the chamber. He hadn't spoken in decades. "And what of the promise?" he said in a deep, cracking voice. Everyone turned. "What promise?" another counselor asked. The priest looked directly at Lyra. "The one he made. The child who told the princess that he would return for her. The words that seeded a blade and shaped a warrior. Are you still chasing a dream, exile?" Lyra stood tall. "I became a warrior not to chase love, but to protect the one moment in my life when someone saw me as more. If that memory gave me strength, then so be it." "And you?" the priest asked Jace. "Did you mean what you said?" Jace swallowed. "I was a boy. I didn't know the weight of my words. But now I do." He looked at Lyra. "And I would say it again." A slow breath passed through the chamber. Then, boom! A loud blast shook the floor. The crystal windows shattered. Smoke rushed in. "Attack! Guards! Shields up!" one elder cried. Masked warriors stormed in. Rebels, cloaked in dark blue armor carrying shock rifles and blade staffs. They wore the mark of the pure-blooded, a fanatical Celeran faction that rejected all human contact. "Kill the exile." Their leader roared. "Kill the traitor princess!" Chaos erupted. Lyra spun with precision, pulling a blade from her hip. She knocked one rebel down with a clean strike and disarmed a second with a kick to the knee. Jace grabbed a fallen guard's rifle and fired, protecting Lyra's flank. Elders ran for cover. Guards clashed with rebels. The war council turned into a battlefield. Lyra and Jace moved together, perfectly in sync. It was not the first time they'd fought back to back, but it was the first time they did it in front of those who once cast her out. As a rebel swung his blade toward an elder's throat, Lyra leapt between them, catching the strike with her arm guard. She spun and disarmed him, then roared, "If you want Celira's future, then fight beside me." The tide turned. Even the skeptical guards now fought under her command. Jace took a shoulder hit, but kept moving, protecting the escape route. Finally, the last rebel fell. Smoke cleared. The chamber was torn and burned. But it stood, and so did Lyra. Blood ran from her shoulder. Her braid was cut. Her armor cracked, but her eyes still burned like a twin star. Elder Tyrek stood again, holding his chest. He looked at the destruction, the bodies, the survivors. Then at Lyra. "You saved us. You brought the truth. And you fought like no counselor ever did." He paused. "You are no longer exile." The room fell into stunned silence. "Rise, Commander Lyra, defender of Celira." The guard saluted. Jace stepped closer to her. "You're a commander now?" "Yes," she said, breathing heavily. "But I'm not stopping here." He smiled, faintly. "Good. Because the humans are still coming." She nodded. "Then we go to war. The Princess of Blades." The sky above Celira was no longer calm. Hundreds of ships, Celiran, human, and rogue fleets, moved in silence across the upper atmosphere. Some came under banners of peace, some under lies, and others under no flag at all below them, in the hidden mountain city of Zareth Vin. Once a place of meditation and lost warriors, a new army was rising, not of kings, not of rulers, but of outcasts. Inside the hollow core of the mountain, Lyra stood atop a stone platform, watching a crowd of fighters train below. They came from forgotten places, disgraced Celeran guards, human, deserters who had seen too much, machine-born rebels and quiet assassins who no longer served a side. They trained together under her command, and for the first time in generations, they trained with both Celiran and human techniques. Strike, in rhythm. Break pattern. Be unseen. Be unexpected, Lyra shouted across the stone walls. Her voice echoed. Jace stood nearby, a tablet in hand, scanning reports. His face was tight with stress. The truth he had uncovered was spreading fast, but so were the lies. "We have a problem," he said. "Just one," Lyra replied without turning. "Fleet Command back on the human side just labeled you a terrorist, and me a compromised asset. They've sent 2 battle cruisers toward Celira. Officially, it's a diplomatic visit. Unofficially, they're armed to the teeth. Lyra stepped down from the platform, sweat shining on her temple. They're not coming to talk. No, Jace said. They're coming to end this before it spreads. He hesitated. And there's something else. Lyra turned, sensing his unease. Say it. My former commander, Admiral Rayner. He's leading the cruiser. He raised me like a second father. She looked at him, and for once she saw pain in his eyes. He sent me a message. It wasn't public. Encrypted. He handed her the tablet. She pressed play. A grim voice filled the air. Jace, if you're hearing this, then you've chosen her. I taught you to follow your instincts, and I know they've never led you wrong. But this is bigger than you. She's starting a fire that could tear everything down. Step aside, or we'll put it out by force. A pause. Don't make me choose between saving you and saving the future. Lyra let the recording end in silence, then said, He's already chosen. 2 days later, the exiled army stood assembled. They weren't the largest, or the best equipped, but they believed, and Lyra stood before them in new armor, crafted from both Celerin royal plating and stolen human composite. Her shoulders bore the mark of her old house, and across her chest a symbol no warrior had worn in centuries, the sigil of the Twin Oaths, a forgotten creed that vowed protection for all species, not just one. She looked across the crowd. You are not just rebels, not just soldiers, not just broken names. You are the answer they never saw coming. Her voice rose. The humans fear me. The Council fears me. But what they fear most is what happens when we fight together. A roar rose from the crowd. Even Jace was stunned by her power. This was no longer the girl from the garden. She had become a symbol. He stepped beside her and spoke next. You all know who I am, and maybe you don't trust me. That's fine. But I've bled for this truth. I've been hunted for it. And now I choose to fight beside the one person brave enough to stand when everyone else stayed silent. He turned to Lyra. We don't just fight for survival now. We fight for the story that will be told after. Hours later, the battle began. High above, Admiral Rayner's cruiser broke orbit, followed by 2 smaller destroyers. Jace stood in the control room of their defense station, eyes locked on the sensors. They're not slowing down, he said. Still running cold. No diplomatic signal. They're coming in armed. Lyra stood across from him. Calm. Ready. Then we greet them. With what? We can't match their firepower. Then we don't. She pressed a control. Holograms of asteroids lit up, hundreds of them floating in orbit. But these weren't natural. They were mind-hollowed and rigged field mines. We let them come close, she said. Then we turned the field into a cage. Jace hesitated. And if they call your bluff? She looked at him, voice like steel. Then we show them it's not a bluff. As the cruisers entered the mined sector, warnings flashed on their dashboards. Rayner stood on the bridge, frowning. She really did it, he muttered. A junior officer turned to him. Sir, orders? Rayner stared at the screen. His former protege's face was on the enemy list. He closed his eyes, and for a moment, he remembered Jace as a boy, laughing in training, stubborn and curious. Open channel, he said. In Zareth Vin's command. Center? Jace's console beeped. Incoming transmission from Rayner. He looked at Lyra. She nodded. He opened the line. Rayner's voice filled the room. Jace, last chance. Power down. Walk away. No one has to die today. Jace took a breath. People are already dying, Rayner. Just not on your side yet. You've been turned. No. I finally opened my eyes. A pause. Then this is war. No. Lyra cut in, stepping beside Jace. This is history. And she ended the call. Above, the first cruiser moved into the minefield. The traps armed. Explosions shook the void. Celerin fighters poured from hidden stations, diving between debris and flame. Jace launched their shield systems. Lyra led the first squad in person. The battle for truth had begun, not with banners, but with fire. And for the first time, The galaxy looked on, because the princess they once rejected had become more than legend. She had become the blade that would cut through all lies, the vow in war's wake. The stars burned red above the shattered moon of Varos. Debris drifted like dead leaves in orbit. Broken ships, shattered drones, lost banners from both human and Celeran sides. The final battle had begun. And now, it was reaching its final breath. Jace stood at the edge of a destroyed platform, his body bruised, smoke on his armor. The blast wave had separated him from Lyra hours ago. The main station was falling apart, torn open by missile strikes. But he wasn't looking for a way out. He was looking for her. He climbed through twisted metal corridors, past bodies, some human, some Celeran, some rebels, some his own brothers in arms. Then, he heard it, steel clashing with steel, a hum, a cry. Then silence. He ran faster. Through the final blast door, still half melted from plasma fire, he found her. Lyra stood over a fallen warrior, her braid torn, her left arm bloodied, her right hand still holding the royal blade. Her armor was cracked open at the chest, revealing the sigil of the twin oaths still glowing faintly beneath. Surrounding her were 5 more bodies. Rebels. Soldiers. One of them, human. She had faced them alone, and she had won, but barely. She looked up at him, her breathing sharp, her eyes wild. "You're late." He smiled through the dust. "You cleared the room without me." She chuckled weakly. "They came for the archive, for the last record. I stopped them." Jace looked past her, where a glass chamber stood in the center of the room. Inside, a crystal sphere pulsed with light, the master core of the Varos archive. It held the memories of both sides. Truth, orders, lies, names, all of it. "We have to upload it now," Jace said, stepping forward. Lyra nodded and reached for the console, only to stagger. He caught her. Blood stained his hands. "You're hit bad." "I'll live," she whispered. "Just finish it." He placed the uplink into the console. The system hummed. Ancient technology responding to the presence of both human and Celeran biosigns. The screen flashed green. Uploading universal record. Lyra leaned against him, watching it work. "We'll expose everyone," she said. "Not just the warmongers, not just the generals, but the ones in shadows. The ones who played both sides." Jace looked at her. "And then what?" "Then the galaxy decides." The upload bar inched toward 100%, but just as it reached 97%, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Step away from the console, both of you." Jace turned, slowly. Admiral Raynor stood in the doorway, scorched, helmet removed, plasma rifle aimed, straight at Jace's chest. Behind him, a group of human shock troopers entered, weapons raised. "You're making a mistake, son," Raynor said. "This ends now. No more games." Jace stepped in front of Lyra. "You followed me all the way here? I gave you chances. This is your last one. Step aside. Let us erase this mess." Jace looked him in the eyes. "It's not a mess. It's the truth." "Truth won't save you," Raynor snapped. "Truth won't save any of us. Control will." Lyra tried to rise but staggered again. Raynor saw her bleeding, weakened. "She's dying. You'll die with her." Jace raised his blaster, but Raynor fired first. A plasma bolt struck Jace in the shoulder, throwing him to the ground. His weapon skidded away. "No!" Lyra screamed, crawling toward him. Raynor walked forward slowly, gun still raised, but he didn't notice the small blade sliding from Lyra's boot. With one last breath of strength, she threw it. The dagger spun, through the air, striking Raynor in the wrist. His gun dropped. Lyra dove forward, grabbing Jace's weapon and pointing it at Raynor's head. She stood, barely, bleeding, burning, but still a warrior. "You taught him everything he knows." She said, her voice shaking, "But you never taught him when not to follow." Raynor raised his hands. "You can kill me, but the war won't stop." "No," she said, "but the story will change." She turned to Jace. He was still breathing. Barely, His hand reached up, placing the final confirmation on the console. Upload complete. A bright pulse exploded from the archive. Signals fired into orbit. Transmissions went live across a dozen systems. Every war crime, every secret deal, every name, every lie. Sent into the stars, sent to every channel, every voice, every species. The galaxy now knew 2 days later, the war stopped. Not because peace had arrived, but because no one could keep fighting under the same lies. On Earth, trials began. On Salira, the Council opened its doors to other species for the first time. The rebels, both human and alien, lost power as the truth burned across screens and minds, and in the quiet core of a medical ship orbiting the neutral station of Kalis Prime, Jace opened his eyes. Lyra was there, sitting beside his bed, bandages wrapped across her ribs and arm. He smiled faintly. "We win?" She nodded. "We won something." "What now?" he asked. She looked out the window, where ships floated without guns, where exiles walked beside commanders, where future finally seemed possible. "Now we build what they tried to destroy." He reached out and took her hand. I was serious. "You know, about what?" "The promise. I didn't understand it then, but I do now." She turned to him, eyes full of strength and something else. "Peace." "Then say it again," she whispered. Jace held her hand tighter. "When you grow up," he said, voice soft, "I'll marry you." She leaned forward, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I already have." Outside the window, the stars didn't seem so far anymore, and the blade that once brought war now carried hope.